This is the case of Kevin Mullins and Sean "Mickey" Steins, two men who stood at the very center of justice in a small Kentucky town. For years, Mullins served as district judge, while Steins rose from bailiff to sheriff, trusted to keep order in a close-knit community where everyone knew each other's names. Together, they carried the weight of law and authority in a place where family ties run deep and reputations mean everything. But in September 2024, the quiet streets of Whitesburg were shaken by an event that no one could have imagined. It wasn't a dispute between rivals or strangers. It was something far more personal. Welcome to Bad Things. Today we peel back the layers of a story that left a town in shock. One of power, trust, and betrayal at the very heart of justice. The judge and the sheriff. Kevin R. Mullins was born on June 25, 1970, in Pikeville, Kentucky. From the start, he built a life around law and justice. After earning his degree at the University of Kentucky, he continued on to study law at the University of Louisville. By 1995, he had his law license in hand and was ready to begin his career. In 2001, Mullins took a key step. He became an assistant Commonwealth's attorney in Letcher County, where he prosecuted cases and gained a reputation for being sharp and confident in the courtroom. His work didn't go unnoticed. In 2009, Kentucky's governor at the time, Steve Beshear, appointed him to serve as a district judge for the 47th Judicial District. The following year, he won the election outright, securing his position. Over the years, Mullins continued to be re-elected, running unopposed at times. By then, he was firmly established as the face of justice in the county. At his side, in a very different role, was Sean M. "Mickey" Steins. Steins started his career working as a bailiff in the very court Mullins oversaw. He spent years handling the day-to-day order of the courtroom, standing just a few feet away from the judge's bench. In 2018, Steins stepped into politics himself, winning the election to become Letcher County Sheriff. By 2022, the people had given him another term, showing they trusted him with both law enforcement and community safety. On paper, the judge and the sheriff looked like the perfect pair to uphold justice. But behind the small-town smiles and the confidence that came with years in power, there were tensions no one could have imagined. The bond between Mullins and Steins wasn't just professional, it was personal. They had worked together for years, they trusted each other, yet that trust was about to shatter in the most shocking way possible. The murder in the courthouse. On September 19, 2024, the town of Whitesburg, Kentucky, woke up to what felt like just another ordinary day. In a community of fewer than 2,000 people, life often moved quietly. The courthouse was part of that rhythm, a familiar building where faces were known and trust seemed automatic. But that Thursday would turn into the darkest chapter the town had ever seen. That morning, Judge Kevin Mullins and Sheriff Sean "Mickey" Steins were spotted together in the judge's chambers. Mike Watts, the circuit court clerk, remembered stepping into the judge's chambers around midday to have some papers signed. Inside, Mullins and Steins were preparing to have lunch. To him, it looked like nothing more than two colleagues and longtime friends sharing another routine day. The only thing that stood out was how unusually quiet Steins seemed. Still, Watts thought little of it. After all, these men had worked side by side for decades. Just hours later, everything would change. At exactly 2:40 p.m., courthouse security cameras captured Steins walking into Mullins' office once more. Other employees stepped out, leaving the two men alone behind closed doors. What happened next was unthinkable. Minutes later, Steins pulled out his gun and shot Mullins multiple times.
Because it was captured on video surveillance right in the judge's chambers. You see the sheriff hold up the gun, and obviously we don't play the whole thing, but it's all on camera.
The 54-year-old judge, who had spent 15 years on the bench, died right there in his chambers. A 911 call went out, reporting shots fired inside the courthouse. Panic spread like wildfire. On another floor, Mike Watts received a call from his son, warning him about an active shooter. Security officers and staff scrambled to move attorneys and clerks out of harm's way. Schools across Letcher County went into lockdown. Parents received urgent alerts telling them their children were safe, but that danger loomed downtown. At first, no one understood what had happened. Was it a random attack? A gunman on the loose? Fear gripped the courthouse until police in tactical gear stormed the building. Then the truth emerged. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a drifter who wandered in off the street. The shooter was their own sheriff, a man sworn to protect the courthouse and, ironically, to protect Judge Mullins himself. What stunned people even more was how calm Steins appeared afterward. Local attorney Tyler Ward recalled seeing him outside on Main Street as police rushed in. He noted that Steins never even reached for his sidearm as chaos unfolded around him. Minutes later, Steins surrendered quietly to police without resistance. He was arrested on the spot and charged with first-degree murder. The news spread fast through Whitesburg, and disbelief echoed from every corner. The shock deepened when more details surfaced. Authorities said the shooting followed an argument between the two men, though the exact motive was unclear. What could have pushed a sheriff to execute a sitting judge in broad daylight, inside a courthouse both men once called home? Meanwhile, the community struggled to process the loss. Judge Mullins was dead. Sheriff Steins was in custody. Two of the county's most powerful men were gone in an instant, one by murder, the other by his own hand pulling the trigger. Even Kentucky's top officials weighed in. Attorney General Russell Coleman promised a full investigation and pledged that his office would work with a special prosecutor to see justice done. The state Supreme Court Chief Justice Lawrence Van Meter said he was shocked by this act of violence and acknowledged that the entire court system was shaken. But those words offered little comfort to the people of Whitesburg. To them, this was more than a headline. It was personal. As residents gathered in disbelief, many asked the same question. What really happened inside that room? Why would a sheriff, a man known as a devoted family figure and community protector, execute his longtime friend and colleague? The search for answers was only just beginning. And as investigators peeled back the layers, they discovered something even darker beneath the surface. Because the shooting wasn't just about two men. It was about secrets that had been whispered in the town for years. The investigation. In the days after the shooting, shock turned into questions. How could two of the county's most trusted men, a judge and a sheriff, end up on opposite sides of a murder case? Police quickly pieced together the timeline. According to the Kentucky State Police, the two men had an argument inside Mullins' chambers that escalated out of control. In later testimony, investigators revealed the dispute may have involved Steins' teenage daughter. A state trooper testified that her phone number was found on the judge's phone and that Steins had tried to call her, once from his own device and again using Mullins' phone.
I was told that Sheriff Steins had tried to call his daughter, and he had tried to call his daughter from the judge's phone also.
What exactly that meant remains unclear, but the tension was undeniable. Moments later, Steins drew his weapon and shot Mullins multiple times. When troopers arrived, Steins surrendered without a fight. He was charged with first-degree murder. But as he was being taken into custody, Steins made a statement that left investigators scratching their heads. "They are trying to kidnap my wife and kid," he blurted out, according to Detective Clayton Stamper. What exactly did he mean? Who were they? Was it paranoia, stress, or something more? To this day, authorities are still trying to make sense of it. As investigators dug deeper, an unsettling picture started to emerge. Just days earlier, Sheriff Steins had been deposed in a lawsuit involving his department. The case centered on a former deputy, Ben Fields, who had been accused of repeatedly forcing a woman to have sex inside Mullins' chambers in exchange for staying out of jail. The accusations were disturbing. According to the lawsuit, Fields coerced a woman named Sabrina Atkins into having sex while she was on house arrest. In return, he promised to keep her out of jail and even helped her avoid paying the fees for her ankle monitor. The abuse allegedly took place inside the courthouse itself, in the judge's chambers. Another woman, Jennifer Hill, was also part of the lawsuit. She too claimed to have been targeted by Fields. But before the case could go far, Hill died. Her estate, however, continued to pursue the lawsuit. Fields eventually pleaded guilty to rape, sodomy, perjury, and tampering with a monitoring device. His jail sentence was suspended, and he was placed on probation. The lawsuit didn't just point the finger at Fields. It also accused Sheriff Steins of failing to properly train or supervise his deputy. In other words, the sheriff should have seen the red flags and stopped him. Steins eventually fired Fields in 2022, citing conduct unbecoming. Still, for many, the damage was already done. When Steins sat for his deposition, witnesses described him as restless and unsettled. He took repeated breaks. At one point, when asked if he had authorized his deputy to use public equipment to manage ankle monitors, Steins could only respond, "I don't recall. I'm having an episode. Sorry." It was a strange moment, and it added to the impression that something was weighing heavily on him. In the days that followed, people noticed Steins acting out of character. Normally, he was quick to respond to reporters, but after the deposition, he avoided questions. Ben Gish, editor of the local paper, the Mountain Eagle, said Steins even told his staff not to answer calls. Gish, who knew Steins as approachable and friendly, thought that was unusual. He later admitted he had a sinking feeling. Something had to be bad wrong if the sheriff's office wasn't releasing information that was that simple, Gish recalled. By the time the shooting happened, rumors were already flying across social media. In a small town, speculation spreads fast. Some of the accusations were wild, others deeply personal. Preacher Michael Clark, a friend of both men, even pleaded with residents online to stop gossiping. But he was quickly attacked for defending them, and he deleted his post. The silence from officials, combined with the swirl of rumors, only made people more anxious. Everyone wanted to know what really happened inside the judge's chambers. As the investigation unfolded, darker claims surfaced. Several women began speaking out about a pattern of abuse that they said stretched far beyond one rogue deputy. They alleged that Judge Mullins himself used his power to coerce sex from women facing charges in his courtroom. One of them was Taya Adams.
To cause this, we went to the town in Kentucky. We met with the women. This first one, her name is Taya. She says that she had sex with the judge to get out of trouble, and it happened again and again and again and again. Listen to what she said. What was your first interaction with the judge?
I knew him before because my sister worked for the Commonwealth Attorney for a really long time. Like, I grew up in his office and stuff. So whenever he got elected to be Commonwealth Attorney, and we moved over into City Hall, and then Kevin was the Assistant Commonwealth Attorney, and his office was like across the road from it. And I was kind of like informal intern in there, like learning office management and stuff. And I went over to his office to learn how to take a deposition. And that was the first interaction that I had with him as far as the sex and stuff goes.
What happened?
I gave him oral with my shirt pulled down, and whenever we were done, he threw money in my face, told me to clean myself up, and reminded me that I knew better than to tell my sister.
She recalled first meeting Mullins years earlier when she was interning informally at the Commonwealth Attorney's office, where her sister had already been working. Adams claimed Mullins invited her to parties in cabins and apartments where drugs and alcohol were always present. She said cocaine and pills circulated freely, and women were pressured into sex acts in exchange for leniency on charges or lighter sentences. She admitted she even had sex with Mullins in his chambers.
You know, and like who would believe it anyway, because the whole town's doing it. You know, nobody cares. They're all swingers. It's all a big party to them. It was just like so normal.
Did you ever have sex with him after he became judge?
Yeah. Yeah.
When he was the judge?
Yes. I've had sex with him in the chambers. I've had sex with him upstairs.
You had sex in the chambers?
Yes.
Her story painted a disturbing picture of power imbalance. Mullins, she said, held control over her children's custody, her probation, and her future. Saying no didn't feel like an option. They used it against us and destroyed our lives, she admitted in one interview. When she heard about his death, Adams said she felt relief, not because she supported violence, but because she hoped the truth would finally come out. Another woman, Sarah Davis, who had worked as a guard at the county jail, echoed these claims. She noticed how inmates connected to Deputy Fields seemed to receive special treatment, privileges like TV access, cigarettes, and trustee status. Whispers circulated about sex traded for favors. While she didn't witness it firsthand, she said the atmosphere in the jail felt more like a brothel than a correctional facility. Even more disturbing, she recalled being personally invited by Judge Mullins to one of his so-called get-togethers, which she understood as a sex party involving local officials. She didn't go, but the invitation alone left her uneasy.
Did you know, inmates were having sex with the judge?
Yes, pretty much that's kind of the thing that everybody in the county knows, but it was confirmed to me after working in the jail, especially after being invited to a party myself.
What happened?
I said no thank you, I declined, and kind of just went back on to what I was doing. It was just one of those things of, was I just asked that? Like, did that just really...
To a sex party?
Yes.
Who asked you?
It was Mr. Mullins himself.
For the women who did come forward, speaking out carried risks. Some faced retaliation. Adams, for example, said she was constantly targeted with new charges, and Child Protective Services eventually took her children. Others feared harassment or worse if they dared to challenge the system. There were even whispers of suspicious overdoses, women who might have known too much, suddenly gone before their stories could be told. Whether coincidence or cover-up, the message was clear. Silence was safer. Locals admitted that many people in town knew something was going on, but fear kept most quiet. In a place where the judge, sheriff, and deputies held so much power, stepping out of line could cost you your freedom, your children, or even your life. With these allegations coming to light, the shooting took on a darker meaning. Did Mullins and Steins argue about the lawsuit? Did the sheriff know about the judge's secrets and feel pressured to stay quiet? Or was his claim about protecting his family more than just paranoia? So far, investigators haven't confirmed a motive. Surveillance footage clearly shows what happened, but the reason remains uncertain. Police are combing through phone records and depositions, trying to connect the dots. Prosecutors have already said the grand jury will take up the case. In the meantime, residents are left with speculation. To some, Stein snapped under pressure from the lawsuit. To others, he acted because he knew the corruption had gone too far. His defense attorney hinted at a possible insanity defense, saying the sheriff felt like killing Mullins was the only way to protect his wife and daughter. Whatever the truth, the reality is chilling. One man is dead, another is behind bars, and the courthouse has been shut down until further notice. What started as a murder investigation is now exposing something deeper. A system where the line between law and exploitation may have been blurred for years. And the story is far from over. Aftermath. After the courthouse doors closed, Whitesburg was left reeling. For many, it still didn't feel real. Sean Mickey Steins remains behind bars, charged with first-degree murder. His lawyer pushed for a $50,000 cash bond, arguing he was no flight risk, but as of now, Stein sits in detention, awaiting trial. He has pleaded not guilty. His attorney has already signaled he may pursue a mental health defense, saying Steins truly believed his family was in danger. That part of the case is still unfolding, and more witnesses are quietly coming forward. Prosecutors are preparing, and the Kentucky Attorney General's office has stepped in to ensure the investigation continues with full transparency. Funeral arrangements for Mullins were made just miles from his hometown. On September 22nd, hundreds of mourners gathered at Jenkins Middle and High School to pay their respects. Several judges spoke in his honor, including Kentucky Supreme Court Deputy Chief Justice Deborah H. Lambert, who praised Mullins for his passion for people. Flags were lowered to half-staff across Kentucky's courthouses. For Whitesburg, the scandal was bigger than a single killing. Judges statewide admitted they were shaken. The pain has stretched beyond the courthouse walls. Schools, businesses, and churches all buzzed with disbelief. Residents couldn't help but wonder what it all meant for their community. Two of their most powerful leaders were gone, one buried, the other locked away. And as lawsuits moved forward and victims spoke out, the town faced a painful question. Was justice in Letcher County ever truly fair? For Circuit Clerk Mike Watts, the tragedy is personal. We've not only lost our sheriff and district judge, but I've lost two personal friends that I worked with daily, he said. He admitted that the shock still hasn't worn off. I don't know what happened, or what the reason was. Hopefully investigators can tell us something, because maybe then we can start to heal. Matt Butler, the county's Commonwealth's attorney, echoed that heartbreak. He had known both men for years, and even described them as family. His children and their children growing up more like siblings than cousins. The connection ran deep. Yet because of those ties, Butler stepped away from the case, recusing himself to avoid any conflict of interest. His decision showed just how tangled this tragedy is. In Letcher County, everyone is connected somehow. Retired sheriffs and judges across Kentucky have spoken about how shocking this crime is. Jerry Wagner, now head of the State Sheriff's Association, reminded people that sheriffs are responsible for judges' security. The idea that one sheriff killed the very judge he was sworn to protect rattled law enforcement statewide. It is almost unheard of in modern American history. The shock is felt most in the mountains of southeastern Kentucky. This is a region shaped by coal mining, steep hills, and hard living. Violence isn't unknown here. Homicide rates have long been higher than the national average. But this case is different. It wasn't a feud between families or a dispute gone too far. It was the sheriff against the judge, both entrusted with keeping order. That betrayal cuts deep. Wes Addington of the Appalachian Citizens Law Center put it bluntly. The lasting effects are going to be measured in decades, not years, he said. For him, this tragedy strikes at the very foundation of the justice system. This cuts to the heart of an ordered society, a democracy, he explained. People feel like we're standing on quicksand. Life in Whitesburg has always been tied to family, church, and community. People lean on each other through floods, layoffs, and hardship. That same closeness makes a tragedy like this even heavier. Everyone knew these men. Everyone trusted them. Now trust itself has been shaken. The courthouse has since reopened under temporary leadership, and a retired judge is handling cases until a replacement is chosen. But no one in Letcher County will ever see that building the same way again. For the people who live here, the scars will linger. Not only because a judge is dead and a sheriff sits in jail, but because the questions remain unanswered. This story leaves us with a haunting question. Was Steins protecting his family, or was he trying to silence secrets that were finally catching up? And even more unsettling, if the very people sworn to protect justice can betray it, how can a community ever truly feel safe again? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more cases. See you in the next video.